I've actually heard some people putting garlic and onions in their sock, which does not work. All it does is pretty much make your feet smell like soup. Sorry.
Big questions, small questions. The ones that you ask the internet at 1 a.m. Our research experts have the answers to those everyday curiosities. Like,
Have you ever wondered what the flu is and how it works? My name is Rifqa Fayaz from Deakin University, and I'm here to tell you all about it. How does the flu virus actually spread from person to person? So the flu virus actually spreads from person to person when you breathe in respiratory droplets from an infected person. And those droplets might be spreading through coughing, sneezing, or even talking. You might even be able to pick up the virus from surfaces that's got these infected droplets on them. So when you touch them and potentially when you reach to your mouth and your eyes, and that's how they enter your body. So that is actually how the flu virus spreads. What's the difference between the flu and a common cold? So both the flu and the common cold are actually caused by different types of viruses. You can compare the cold to a slight drizzle, and you can compare the flu to potentially a thunderstorm. The cold, a drizzle, is typically quite manageable. You might get a bit of a sniffle, a little bit of a sore throat, and you might feel a bit sluggish, want to, stay in all day. But typically it's quite manageable. But with the flu, it resembles kind of like a thunderstorm. So it hits you really hard and really fast. It gives you body aches, fever, really bad sore throat, weakness, fatigue, muscle aches. Typically, people recover really quickly from a cold, potentially maybe 5 days to a week, a little bit more. With the flu, in normal healthy people, you also usually get better from the flu pretty quickly. But the difference with the flu is that sometimes you might even get hospitalized with the flu, and in vulnerable individuals, sometimes it might even cause death. So why is the flu worse in winter than in summer? So typically the flu virus actually survives longer in colder environments. So in Australia, from around June to September, that is usually called the flu season because that is the colder months. And in winter, people are typically indoors, right, to escape the cold. So that means, more of the virus circulates and the transmission of the virus actually increases during winter because of that as well. So how long does the flu virus survive on surfaces like doorknobs or phones? The flu virus actually needs a live host to replicate and keep going. So they die without a live host. So outside of a living cell, they can actually survive on surfaces, depending on the type of surface, between 8 to 48 hours. So with doorknobs and phones, they are hard surfaces, so they can actually survive up to 24 hours or even 48 hours on hard surfaces. Why do flu strains change every year, and how are vaccines updated to keep up? So this is really interesting. So I want you guys to think of the flu as a master of disguise. So the flu rapidly changes its coat, clothing, which is this outer layer or outer coat. That happens quite rapidly. It's called a mutation. So that happens so often that every single year you need to update the vaccine, and that's why you need to get a fresh new vaccine every single year. So it is a bit like updating your phone just to keep up with the latest threats. What are the most common misconceptions people have about the flu? In my opinion, one of the most common misconceptions is the fact that the flu is just a really bad cold, when in reality, vulnerable people can get hospitalized and even die from the flu if not treated properly. And vulnerable people include people who are immunocompromised and people who are elderly as well. So how does the flu affect children, adults, and the elderly differently? So you guys might have heard of children being super spreaders. So this is pretty much because for children, usually in school or in play, they're a bit more in contact with each other. With children that are older than 5 years old, like any normal healthy adult, they can recover without any severe complications. But with kids that are younger than 5 years old, their immune system is still developing. So that can lead to more severe complications there as well. And the same thing with elderly people as well. So our immune system actually naturally weakens as we age. So if elderly people get the flu virus, that could lead to pretty severe complications too. How do antiviral medications work against flu? So there's different types of antivirals. Most of them target the flu virus itself. So what happens is with some of them, they prevent the flu virus from exiting cells, and other antivirals actually stop the virus from making copies of itself. So this way it stops the spreading of the virus through the respiratory system. And an important thing to note is that most of these antivirals actually work if they've been administered within 48 hours, which is a little bit tricky because most of us don't even know that we've got the flu within 48 hours. What is the weirdest home remedy you've heard for curing the flu? I've actually heard some people putting garlic and onions in their socks, which does not work. All it does is pretty much make your feet smell like soup. Garlic and onions do have healthy components in them, but you'll have to actually eat them for you to be getting any benefit out of them. But even then, it's not going to cure the flu. Do flu germs spread more on planes, trains, or in the office? Absolutely. So the flu virus will spread more in crowded places that are poorly ventilated. So it doesn't really have to be specifically on planes, trains, or in the office. So anywhere that's poorly ventilated and crowded and with really little fresh air circulating, you'll have more spread of the flu virus. Is sweating the flu out actually a thing or just a myth? It is just a myth. So you cannot sweat a flu virus out. Don't try to sweat too much and not replenish your fluids because that's not actually going to do anything. Just make sure to stay hydrated.